Welcome back to Laugh to Keep from Crying. You're tuned in with CJNA After Dark. Just remember, I'm sharing this to heal, never to hurt. Before I dive in, if you haven't listened to episode 1 of this 2-part episode yet, I suggest you go back and check it out. It's just too much to unpack to recap everything here. But just quickly, I talked about some family stuff, the toxic relationship I was in, and how high school wasn't really getting any easier. Things started going downhill in more ways than one. So, let's talk about it. So by 11th grade, I was passing my classes. Not on an honor roll or anything fancy, but I was surviving. I even started making a couple of friends. Not forever friends, but people I could vibe with. Math was my favorite class. Funny, because I can't stand math, and I'm not good at it. But we had the best math teacher ever. I still remember his name to this day. I had this one guy friend who helped me out during tests. He'd even slide me answers sometimes. He would burn me CDs back then too. Yeah, that's telling my age. Meanwhile, my boyfriend at the time was just playing me. Girls would be at his locker, and I'd come up and feel invisible. I remember one time seeing a girl eating a lollipop. He just took it from her and popped it in his mouth like I wasn't even there. Like, really? Hello? I was his girlfriend. The abuse got worse. The disrespect got worse. And I started fighting back. It's too much to unpack on a podcast, but I'll say this. If I was going to have a busted lip, so was he. If he was going to hit me, I made sure he hurt in places he didn't want to. One time, I kicked him so hard into a shelf with my boots that the whole thing came down. He knew I wasn't playing anymore, but that didn't stop the abuse. Another time, we got into it so bad, I grabbed the knife from his kitchen and threatened him. I lost myself. His family was around sometimes. He lived with his grandma. His aunt and uncle was around too. Once, his uncle tried to step in, but my boyfriend just cursed him out. His grandma, she tried to intervene when things got bad and heard us going at it. But one thing I'll give him credit for, he never disrespected his grandma. I loved his family, but all the signs told me I needed to get out. But I kept telling myself he could change. I was in love with being seen, even if it was toxic. Then one day, my friend from math walks up to me and says, "Hey, you're with so-and-so, right?" I said, "Yeah, that's my man." He said, "Well, word on the street is he's taking some shit to his house." Wait, what? He's like, you didn't hear that from me. I wasn't going to his house that day, but I decided to show up anyway. Now listen, I'm not a fighter by nature. I talk a good game, but I don't throw hands unless I absolutely have to. When I got there, lo and behold, there was a girl on his bed. No explanation, no acknowledgement. He told me it was just a friend. That was the moment I realized I was just a tool to him. Here when he needed me, and invisible when he didn't. I think after that, we kind of separated. Things got messy. By the end of 11th grade, my friend from math class and we started vibing. We talked, chilled. I started liking him on a different level. But then, summer came, and we lost contact. I don't know if our numbers changed or what, but we didn't talk all summer. Then, there was my daughter's father, the guy who lived down the street. We started hanging out again. He was a different person now, a little for the streets. Still a sweetheart, still cool. We started doing some adult things. I stopped using protection, just being dumb. He said he didn't have anything and would just pull out. Why did I listen to that? I was messing around with him, but I started to see things I didn't like. He seemed like he cared, bought me jewelry, went places with him and his family, but he started drinking and smoking with new friends. I started seeing random girls pop up. Here I am, sitting here thinking things would be different. His family was sweet. His sisters loved me. But he just wasn't ready. Not for a relationship, and definitely not for what came next. When school started, I wasn't feeling right. I remember throwing up and thinking, hold up, something ain't right. I thought maybe I was pregnant. I wasn't naive about it, but for some reason, I felt like it was impossible. For months, I didn't say anything to anybody, not even him, because I didn't want to face it. At school, I wore hoodies, being real paranoid. I finally told him, I think I'm pregnant. And he flipped out. Mind you, I was 17 and he was almost 18. He said he wasn't ready for kids. I was like, what do you mean? You ready to do whatever without protection, but not ready for kids? He told me to go to the doctors to check so I could be sure. And for some reason, I didn't take a home test. Deep down though, I knew. But I just went straight to the doctor the next day, alone and scared. At the doctor, they told me I was definitely pregnant, 24 weeks along. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That's 6 months. I bawled my eyes out. I was too scared my mom would find out. I was still on her insurance. So for 6 months, no prenatal care or nothing. Besides him, I told nobody. Not my family, not his family. Then, I told my high school boyfriend I was pregnant. And somehow, he thought the baby might be his. We had never really broken up, even after things fell apart. And somewhere around the time school started, we ended up seeing each other briefly. I honestly can't even remember how it all happened, but the lines were blurry back then. He actually started treating me better. Like, he became more gentle, more respectful, even claimed me and the baby. Everyone at school thought the baby was his, and honestly, I let them believe it, because that's the relationship with him I always wanted. Eventually, I told him the truth, and honestly, I was scared. Not because I thought he hurt me or anything, but because, even after everything we've been through, I still didn't want to hurt him. As crazy as it might sound, I still loved him. Yeah, he'd put me through a lot, and part of me was angry, maybe even wanted him to feel what I felt. But deep down, I didn't want to break him. He had questions. Of course he did. But I never doubted who my child's father was. I knew. I always knew. That chapter closed right there. But it wasn't the end of what was coming. While that situation with him was behind me, I was still carrying the truth that hadn't made its way through my own front door. I was terrified, still walking around with this secret, even though deep down, I think I knew it wouldn't stay hidden forever. By now, I think my daughter's father had told his mom, and surprisingly, she was happy. But I knew that wouldn't be the case for my family. I was close to my grandma. I spent a lot of time with her, but I started pulling away, spending less time downstairs, and I think she knew something was up. She had her kids young, and she had enough of them to recognize the signs. One day, I was running late for school. I went to grab clothes out the dryer, thinking I was alone. My grandma was in her bed, and since she was in a wheelchair, I figured I had time. I knew it usually took her a while to get up, get in her chair, and move around, but somehow she called me. I turned around, and she was just sitting there looking at me like she'd been waiting, like she knew, like she'd been plotting. She looked right at me and said, I knew it. I couldn't say a word. I just put on my clothes and walked out. I could hear her yelling behind me, but the words started to fade out as I ran out the door. After my grandma saw me getting dressed, I already knew I was caught. I still went to school that day, but my anxiety was through the roof. I couldn't focus on nothing. I knew the moment I left that house, she was going to tell my mom, maybe even call her before I got halfway down the street. I was dreading going home all day, like I felt sick. When I finally came back to my aunt's house, my mom and dad were both sitting there waiting on me. And what's crazy is, for the first time in my life, they switched roles. My dad, who's always been the calm, level-headed one, he lost it. And my mom, who's usually the louder, more expressive one, she was quiet, just sitting there, staring at me with disappointment all over her face. I already knew what that look meant. She had me at 18, and she didn't want me to repeat her story. And here I was, doing just that, pregnant. My dad, he called me everything but a child of God. He was so mad, and he told me that I was coming to live with him. And when I told him I was keeping the baby, that I wasn't going to get rid of it, he got even more upset. I said, I'm already 6 months pregnant. It's too late for all that. But he wasn't trying to hear it. He just kept saying, you're coming to live with me. And I remember thinking, what is that even going to change? I'm already pregnant. I'm already here. After that day, we barely talked. Our conversations were short and cold, if we talked at all. Things just went silent between us until after I had my baby. By that point, everyone knew I was pregnant. I mean, it wasn't like I could hide it anymore. My family, everyone at school too. At school, people talked, some laughed, some stared. I just kept my head down. People used to tell me to just drop out, said I was a fool for still coming to school. I felt like I was in a TV show, everyone pointing fingers at me. But it was what it was. Even before I actually went to the doctor, I knew. I think I knew before anyone else did. I was just too scared and naive to admit it to myself. Around that time, maybe even right before I found out, we took a trip to Virginia to visit my mom's sister. And I was pregnant on that trip. I hadn't said anything, but I didn't feel well. I remember feeling like I couldn't even fit my jeans anymore. But I just suffered through it quietly. I didn't tell anyone. After everybody eventually found out, that same aunt, the one in Virginia, she offered to let me move in with her. She had one daughter at the time, and she said she'd help me watch my baby while I went to college. She was ready to welcome me into her family just like that. And honestly, sometimes I regret not doing it. I think about how different things could have been, how maybe I would have finished school right away. Maybe life wouldn't have gotten as hard as it did. I know I would have missed my family, but I think I would have been better off. But I can't change the past. Still, there are moments you look back on and think, dang, I should have taken that opportunity. But I didn't. I stayed, and I had to face everything that came with that decision. As for my daughter's father, he was emotionally all over the place. One day he'd be loving, the next cold and distant. He wasn't going to school. I don't know if his mom stopped making him go or what, but he had dropped out. And he liked when I stayed home with him. He was cool, as long as I was laying there next to him while he played video games or did whatever. But the minute I told him I was still going to school, that I wasn't just going to lay up all day, he didn't want to be bothered with me. I told myself I was going to finish school no matter what and not be the victim of another statistic of teen pregnancy. Every time he would beg me to stay and I wouldn't, he'd get angry and act like he didn't care about me. That's when things changed. That's when I started to see things for what they were. One day, before school, I went to his house before a doctor's appointment. I knocked on the door. No answer. So I went in. I was in a rush and he promised he would go. He wasn't answering his phone, so I just walked over since it was only a few doors down. Knocked on the door to his room. No answer. I opened it and called his name to wake him up. And that's when I saw a girl get up first. She looked at me like she knew exactly who I was. She shook him to wake him up. He got up, looked at me, shook his head, and went right back to sleep. Like he figured there was no point in trying to explain himself. I slammed the door so hard it might have come off the hinges. I cried silently, walked out, held my head high, and left. That was the end of that relationship. I was done. So done. Back at high school, I made a couple of good friends. One of them even helped me pick out my daughter's name. That meant a lot because truthfully, I didn't feel like I had that much support. My grandmama always looked out for me though. She made sure I had lunch every day so I wouldn't be hungry at school. But sometimes I felt too ashamed to eat it in front of people. Folks laughed about everything, and I just didn't want to give them another reason. So most days, I went back to eating in the room with my teachers again. The sad part is, those few friends who stuck by me, we don't even talk anymore. I still follow them on social media, and that's where it ends. But I love them. Still do. We just lost contact over time. And maybe that's on me. Even back then, I was scared to let people in too close. But I don't know. Sometimes I think about everything I missed out on. Like prom. I never got to go to prom. Not in 11th, I was too broke. Not in 12th, I was too pregnant. That same boy from 11th grade math class I told you I connected with, well, he actually asked me to go with him senior year. And I said, you know I'm pregnant with someone else's baby, right? He didn't care, but I did. I was so embarrassed, so ashamed. I said no. I still think about that sometimes. We ended up reconnecting, but I'll save that part for another episode. After that, the rest of senior year flew by. Before I knew it, it was graduation day. Hot, like 90 degrees, on the football field, ghetto, microphones barely working, somebody passed out in the crowd, parents running out onto the field. I didn't even stay till the end. I walked off, went to the gym, got my diploma, threw my report card in the trash. My grades were trash anyway, but I passed. That's all I cared about. Late every day, pregnant and exhausted, but I graduated. And 2 days later, my life changed forever. But that's it for this episode, because what came after graduation, I thought I was prepared, but I wasn't. Not even close. So next time, let's talk about it. Thank you for listening to Laugh to Keep from Crying. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. Catch up on the earlier episodes if you're new. And if you've been rocking with me since episode 1, I see you, I appreciate you, and I'll catch you in the next episode.